Hello. Good morning, good evening, friends. Wherever, whenever that you're tuning in, this is Yonks with the Dow Hack, and super excited today. This is a very different type of video live stream that we're going to be doing here. Chris Carfy from Unlock Protocol is not a stranger to our live streams, and joined with Mrs. Yonks and Dan Roberts from Hack the Light. And we're going to be talking about Contained Connected, a digital photography piece. And I'll let Dan tell a little bit more about this, but from the way that I understand that this is a piece that was commissioned for the ETHDenver conference, which just concluded here a couple weeks ago. Today's March 4th. 2022, the ETHDenver conference was absolutely phenomenal. And I'm going to stop sharing on the thumbnail here because we've got behind me is the actual piece, Contained Connected. There's a link to it in the YouTube description. And I'm going to actually let you, Chris, tell a little bit of the story as far as how the idea came to be. And over to you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Yonks and Miss Yonks and Dan. Great to chat with you all and see you all again virtually this time. And it was great to get in-person connections a couple of weeks ago in Denver. So the way this piece came about is as Unlock Protocol was getting ready for ETHDenver, we wanted to do something that really brought together a number of disjoint things. We wanted to bring together things from the NFT and Ethereum community. We wanted to bring together local art because we see that as such a critical foundation of not only where I think society needs to be right now, but also where technology and art need to bridge. And also while we were in Denver, for folks, if you had seen the news, about 6 or 8 weeks ago, there were some devastating wildfires through the Louisville and Superior area. And we wanted to do something that supported those folks as well. And so started brainstorming. And what we ended up wanting to do was work with a local artist to create a piece that brought together those different components, and through a mutual friend was introduced to Dan, and we were absolutely blown away by this phenomenal piece of art that was created. And so with that, I actually want to kind of bounce it over to Dan. Really would love to hear your thought process and your creative process and a little bit of your background, because you brought together a number of different media that you've worked in to really create this phenomenal piece of work.
Sure, thanks. Let's go back to the introduction story ever so briefly. A mutual friend had said, hey, so-and-so is looking for a digital artist. And I totally thought someone was looking for a graphic designer for a logo or something like that. And I was going to try to help. And then you saw, I reached out for more information, and you saw a piece that I had previously done that actually happened to center around one of the firefighters, not from this particular thing, but from a couple of years ago, but a piece I had made right after the Marshall fires. And you said, well, actually, we want exactly this. So total random connection there, but very much appreciated. So that was kind of how that came together. Yonks, do you have a specific way you want this to flow, or are we just free forming here?
Hey, wherever the conversation goes, I like I said, I love hearing a good story. I absolutely love the piece, and I feel very, very blessed to be the recipient of this piece. And I'm even more blessed to have the conversation to learn more about it. One of the things that we were talking a little bit about before we went live is the opportunity, I believe, to continue to amplify this, because I'm sure that because if I understand, there was like 600 to 1,000 homes here, and we're already in the Front Range here in Colorado having a housing crisis. And Mrs. Yonks can attest, we were, literally house shopping, and was hoping to have this conversation a little sooner, but we were house shopping with my parents here looking to buy a house in the Front Range. And it's pretty ridiculous in the fact that it's not even really spring yet. So that's a big concern. And then having all of these families that are without a house. And like like the new build times here, like even if you said, hey, I want to own a new house that's getting built, the leeway times on those are like 8 to 12 plus months just for new construction. So it's anything that we can do here, I think, to amplify this message, like through some derivatives, NFTs, or whatever the case may be. One of the things that was an interesting conversation that we had, Dan, was like some of the more expensive gas prices with doing NFTs on Ethereum mainnet. And we, Mrs. Yonks and I, are huge fans of Polygon, and that's one of the reasons that we love using Unlock Protocol, because they do have their solution for creators on some much more eco-friendly solutions like Polygon. But anyway, what are your thoughts, Dan or Chris? I know that we said that we'd have a side conversation and we can take those details off, but tell us a little bit about how that you, because let's talk about the one of the benefits, the nonprofit or whomever that you selected for these Marshall wildfires.
Yeah, so I mean, part of this was we wanted to again work with Dan, work with somebody from the local community, and we wanted folks who were at ETHDenver, and in particular came to the event that we had between Unlock Protocol and Mintgate to see the work. There was actually a physical version of the NFT that was there as well, and then do a donation to the Boulder Wildfire Relief Fund. And so we were able, through both the donations as well as some matching from Unlock, to raise $1,000 that we donated directly to that Wildfire Relief Fund, which is going to some of the families from those 600,000 homes, and then the folks who were displaced and impacted by the fire. And so just really see this as an important way to bring all of those things together, and not just parachute into the Denver, Boulder metropolitan area, do a crypto conference and then bail out. We actually wanted to be part of helping the community as part of that as well. So that was where we're coming from. Dan, I would love to hear your perspective. There was a lot that went into the creation of this piece, and there are at least half a dozen different aspects that I'm aware of, and I know that there are much more in your creative process. So I'd love to hear your story of how you brought the different pieces together, how those were individually created, and then how you decided to bring them together, and what some of the different meanings and different pieces of the piece are representative of.
Sure. Well, I'll start with a little bit of background. I went to school for applied physics, so very technical mind over here. I've been in IT now for 27 years, and I make art. A lot of years ago, I put out a music CD, but then I switched into art photography and kind of burned out on that after a while. And then about 9 years ago, I got back into it, and specifically light painting photography. So that's a process where you have kind of a dark space, you open up the camera, and in the course of a long exposure, which could be 2 or 3 seconds, or it could be 5 minutes or even longer, you move lights around and you basically create what looks like a photoshopped image completely inside a single camera shot. And so for 9 years, that's been my art. And for me, it has been, what can I do without sitting at a computer, without using Photoshop? And I've got a couple samples here. I don't know if I'm up on the screen here, if you can flip me back here. These are on metal, so they reflect a little bit, but this is a 4-second long shot that was done on a rooftop near Denver with prisms and waving lights around, but this was all captured in camera. And so
wait a minute. So everything there, that was done in camera. So obviously there was probably a little bit of post, but all of the core elements, that was what the camera saw over those 4 seconds.
Camera opens, waves some lights, camera shuts. Really all I do in post is change the black levels, because sometimes it helps the picture pop a little bit. This is another one that I just did. A little hard to see, but with the reflections. But so she's upside down and inverted colors, but all of these are done completely in camera. And there's a lot of satisfaction that comes from that because, first off, it blows minds. People can't believe that these are not Photoshop pictures. But if you looked at both of those, one of the things that you really see is there is a kind of a chaotic organic element. And a lot of Photoshop stuff is really precise. And I completely appreciate art, however it's made. And I've seen some amazing Photoshop stuff. But when the part that taps into me the most is the human and the organic element, stuff that's a little bit less prescribed. Even if you've got Photoshop and you're making swirls or whatever, it's a little too perfect or whatnot. So I was, I've done pretty well for myself in the light painting world. It's not like there's a lot of money in it, but as far as meeting all the best in the world and, hanging with them and holding my own with them and teaching classes, and we've been to Europe a few times, light painting kind of became my art. Now, a couple months ago, I was just kind of messing around on my phone and taking some light painting pieces and then doing some digital transforms to them. Now, that has not been my way for 9 years, but because I was kind of a purist, what can I do in the camera? That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure someone saw my art, they knew that this was done in the camera. So I actually started a second Instagram account for the digital stuff to keep them separate. And this is one piece right here that was done as a light painting shot, but then I manipulated it later in post. The colors look a little bit weird there, but that actually was part of the point. If you look at this, I'm using kind of an RGB offset, and something like this is kind of cyber-like. But this is kind of the introduction, Chris, that we had, which was because I was messing around with these techniques. I revisited one of my old firefighter shots, which had some cool light painting, but I made it a bit more computery. So it was kind of a hybrid between the human organic elements and the digital elements. If we look at the piece that's behind Yonks right now, I don't have the original in front of me, but you see that there's those light rings that kind of are halo around the subject. The model herself, there's some backlight, like she's coming into some, over time, that light kind of symbolizes an awakening, some kind of awareness, an epiphany. Right above her head are some hexagons, which I created in camera with a stencil. The perfect circles were done with a circular glass prism with beveled edges. And a lot of people, these were basically made for people to do photography, and they'd hold them up and they would take a picture through the prism. But with light painting, you can do stuff because you've got a super long exposure. You can do part of the shot with a prism, part of the shot without a prism, or move the prism or whatever. And so all the elements in here that look like they might be organic actually were as captured in a camera. And Chris, when you came to me with an idea for a piece, we had talked about a couple of things. We wanted it to, we could either draw upon something that already created, but I liked the idea of making something specific for this event. And we wanted a local presence. And in the background there is a picture of the Rocky Mountains and, near Denver here. And then because it was centering around the ETHDenver conference, the blockchain, Ethereum specifically, but all the promise of what can be accomplished with that was something I kind of wanted to tap into here. And there's a few aspects to it. And the name of the piece itself, has two elements, contained and connected. And contained, you've got elements like anonymity, if you want. You've got the security of knowing that your transactions are, on the blockchain, and what your world is as contained as you want it to be. But at the same time, you could do an immediate transaction with somebody across the world and purchase something, donate something, acquire ownership of something, check a record, whatever. And that's the connected part of the piece. And so I went through my catalog of light painting images and found this particular piece of one of my friends, and got their permission to use the piece and use that kind of as the basis for this. I added the globe. It's a little tough to see here, but if you look on the bottom of the piece, there's some kind of technical looking grid lines. and young. So you can see that probably better on your print that's hanging on your wall right now. But it's got elements of Colorado, it's got elements of privacy, it's got elements of connection, and kind of a color palette that isn't too over the top, something you might want to have on an office wall. I was kind of looking for some middle ground with all of these pieces. And then Chris, I don't know if you mentioned this, but there are a couple logos that are hidden in there as well. See if you can find the Mintgate logo, the Unlock Protocol logo. Obviously, Ethereum is floating right above her head. And there is one other logo that's kind of hidden in there very discreetly, and that's my own project's logo, Multipass, which is an event ticketing system. I don't know if you found that one yet, but if you do, it's in there somewhere.
I didn't. I actually have my Multipass right here.
Hey, Dan, your work is really so interesting. And how much pre-planning and work does it take to put this together? Do you have kind of like a pencil sketch of what you want to do and then you start putting it together? Do you open it up and then start kind of seeing where it goes? Tell me about your process.
The process varies a bit piece to piece. For this particular one, I found a specific light painting piece first that kind of captured the epiphany bit, like I'd mentioned, of wow, this is a new dawn. This is a new world opening up to possibility. And so for me, finding a piece that, because Chris came to me and it was kind of an aggressive timeline, we didn't have a lot of time to pull this together, but I've also got 9 years of doing this. I've had a big library to draw upon. So I started with a piece that kind of captured the awe of, finding something new or stepping towards the light or whatever it was. From there, I knew I had some elements I wanted to work in the mountains. I wanted to represent something local. The mountains really only made sense at the top. If I did a creek or a stream, that doesn't say Colorado or anything nearly as much as the mountains would. And then I wanted to balance that with kind of the opposite sides. The top is nature and Colorado. The bottom is technology. So I didn't really sketch this one out as much as find the source image and then put together the elements that I thought would make sense. The world was kind of a happy fit because I shot this through a circular prism so that the center around the model was already a circular space, and I made the globe just fit that perfectly. And like I said, the hexagon bit was actually captured in camera. It's a little tech aspect that shows interconnectedness and then all the things that we do as artists to make our work sound deep. I mean, these are all things that went into it, but in the end, some of it just looked good. And sometimes I'll put a lot of thought into sketching something out in advance. This was some general notions that kind of came together as I was just playing with it.
Well, credit to you, Dan, for an absolutely fabulous piece. I am, again, very blessed to be able to hang this on my wall, but even better, have it in my digital NFT collection, and would, again, love to have some conversations as far as what we can do to amplify this piece to benefit the Boulder Wildfire Relief Fund.
Sure, let me jump in too. I mentioned to Chris, I made some physical prints of this as well, which is what you're referring to right now on your wall. And I had made a piece that we'd framed and we'd presented at the Unlock and Mintgate event. And the idea was somebody would win the NFT, but also win this framed print. Now, if you traveled overseas or even within the country on a plane, you probably don't want to have to deal with getting a framed print home. So I also had an unframed print that people could take. But the idea was if we ended up having somebody local that didn't have to fly who won this piece, you'd end up with the framed print. So it was really exciting to me too that we had talked actually at the event. I had talked to a few people, but nowhere near as many people as this got exposed to. And that you were both local and we'd already had some FaceTime. So that was exciting to me.
So Dan, what advice would you give other artists that are digital artists, but they're not necessarily familiar with NFTs, or they are familiar with them, but they don't know how to promote themselves or get connected in the space? What advice would you give somebody that, or one of your colleagues who is kind of outside the circle and wants to get in?
That is the $1 million question. And I say that you've had some NFTs that have sold for what in cryptocurrency value ends up being multi-millions of dollars. But when I told one of my friends who's very connected both in the virtual reality space and the blockchain world about this, he said, wow, you're a unicorn. Like, a lot of people don't have success with NFTs. It's appealing. A lot of the things that's getting the headlines are the Bored Apes, and these are generative art pieces that, to people who are into the serious art, having a computer generated program kick out 1,000 of something with slight variations, that doesn't appeal to me at all. But they're the ones that get the buzz. So I have other artists that I follow that have already been putting years of work in. They've got established followings. This one guy, Jeff Soto Fish Art, released a limited collection of 100 NFTs, and of those 100, he sent out little prints, and you got the NFT and the print, if memory serves. And 10 of those, or I think he sent out 100 prints, and 10 of them had coupons for claiming the NFT as well. So he was bridging his existing audience and doing something both in meat space and also digital space. And that was kind of what appealed to me with this piece was, great, you've got the NFT, but I want you to be able to put it on your wall. And the NFT doesn't say that the piece that's on your wall is, the bona fide thing that you've got the NFT for. You just happen to have both. But to me, leveraging your existing art channels, the media that you've already got, finding people who already want your work, that might be the best avenue to go. Now, that said, it's still pretty young. There are a lot of hurdles in that a lot of people, the general populace has heard of Bitcoin, but is your mom going to go out and buy someone's NFT with a cryptocurrency they've never purchased yet? No, this is early. So be patient.
So this may be a question for you and Chris both. The whole idea of digital rights and IP. I mean, I know obviously the number one issue in art is to make sure that nobody just steals it and doesn't give you credit or pay for it. How do you deal with and Chris, maybe this is a question for you too. How do you deal with some of the IP issues, and to make sure that if I buy your painting or your print or whatever, that I don't also just decide that I own the digital rights to it, or maybe you sell me the digital rights to it once, but I don't have the digital right to resell it 1,000 times. What are some of the ways that Unlock can fit with that? And Dan, are there any ways that you can protect yourself, or just kind of free for all? Somebody gets it and they just get it.
Go first, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not a lawyer. That said, in the U.S., intellectual property rights are pretty well defined at this point, and so whether that representation of a piece of intellectual property of a creative art work, whether it is on a print or whether it's digital through an NFT, my naive understanding is copyright goes with the creator, and that is who holds that copyright unless it is explicitly conferred as part of a sale or as part of things like that. And so,
or work for hire.
Yeah, or done as a work for hire. And so whether it's an NFT piece or somebody using something on a website or printing out flyers and using it in their ads, unless they have gotten those intellectual property rights from the creator, you can't do it. And so if somebody is ripping off an artist and then jamming it into an NFT collection and trying to exploit that, that's where some of the existing systems do come into play. And Dan, what's your perspective on that?
Oh, and also, what can Unlock do to help with that? It's kind of part two of that question.
Yeah, Chris, come back to the Unlock in a bit, because I wanted to directly speak to what you just said there, spoken directly as someone who hasn't necessarily created their own art to put it out into the world, who's seen it on other people's flyers. The law is black and white in that, exactly like you said. But the number of times my work or a friend's work has ended up on someone's flyer or their ad, it's on the internet, we can use it. Just because the law is black and white doesn't mean that you actually get compensated. It doesn't mean you can actually stop people from using it. What it does is gives you legal recourse, none of which is worth actually pursuing unless it's a multi-million-dollar corporation with deep pockets that has used your piece egregiously. Otherwise, all you do is you say, stop doing it, and maybe they listen and maybe they don't. So as a creator, whatever you put out there, you kind of almost have to assume, legal or not, for better or for worse, someone is going to nab it and use it for something else. And you can't really stop that. Now, there's the legal aspect, but then there's the practical aspect. So I'm just speaking to the practical aspect. So there's nothing that could stop any of you from taking an art piece of mine off my website and minting it as an NFT and claiming it to be the one, even though you don't have the right to do that. I can't stop that. What I might be able to do is track down that it happened and try to do something after the fact, but I can't stop you from doing it.
Well, that's one of the things that I think is really interesting. And Chris, I don't know if Unlock has this functionality. So assuming that this is a legit transaction, you create a piece, I buy an NFT, and then I resell the NFT. Can Unlock bake compensation in for the artist? So every time I resell the NFT, Dan gets 1% of that fee back. And then when that person resells it, they get 1%, whatever. Are there a way to create these ongoing commissions for artists so that as people are buying and reselling art, we can create a legit market so these artists can create some commissionable businesses?
The commission aspect of NFTs is a super interesting one. The way I understand it is commissions, although it's sort of commonly assumed that that's part of the way NFTs work, at the current time, it's really not. So any of the commissions and derivative sales and those types of compensation back to the original artist and or any other party, right now that's handled through the centralized marketplaces. So if somebody, when they put their work up on OpenSea or LooksRare or Rarible or one of the other sites, usually you can specify what the different commissions and other types of payments back to the original artist and or other parties are done. I saw come across my feed in the last couple of weeks. I believe there is a proposal out there to try to bake that in as a standard for NFTs, but I believe that's still in the proposal stage. So right now, everything is sort of one-off. And over time, I think we will get to see those sorts of things baked into the fundamental technology as a standard. But right now, it's sort of one-off through the marketplace because there's nothing that prevents somebody from doing a person-to-person transaction that goes around that. And since there's no standard at the current time in the NFT world for that, that would sort of route around it. And so, we will, my perspective is we will get there and we will have that as part of the standard in the next, year or two. But right now it's sort of handled almost offline through the marketplaces themselves.
Well, if I may, on a practical basis, right now, the only place you're going to buy an NFT is through one of these marketplaces. You're not going to buy an NFT from some random Joe that you've never met in a different country who says, trust me, you're going to buy it through OpenSea or Rarible. And they do have that stuff baked in. So at least through their systems, at least. And so in that sense, on a practical basis, you don't have to worry about it too much. Now, there is also nothing that says that all transactions have to go through the proper channels. For instance, if I put up an NFT and someone bought it, and then they sold it to somebody else for 100 times as much, but they made an online transaction of basically $1, and the rest of it happened offline, I've got no recourse for getting any of that as a commission either, because as long as there are systems, there are people who are going to try to exploit those systems. And if you bought something for $1,000, you sell it for $100,000, and there's a 5% thing baked in, someone's going to get a $5,000 commission. If you just do that off the books and then just do a gift NFT transfer, you pocket that otherwise commission. So I don't know how you can stop that.
Well, I'm more thinking about the people that are operating on the up and up. It's kind of like when you go to a restaurant, most people tip servers. I mean, occasionally people don't, and there's nothing you can do about that. But this is the whole idea of creating this thing with artists, this expectation of saying, I think a lot of people would feel great about that transaction of saying, yeah, I would love to have the original artist compensated, especially when getting a high quality piece like this. And it took me a really long time to get into NFTs because I thought they were all ugly and stupid and looked like a third grader could design them. And I'm sure that they probably a lot more to it than that. But I think that the fine art world could really, I think people would love this. I think just be able to have the functionality of an NFT with something that's beautiful that you wanted to have in your wallet or on your wall. I think there's just a huge opportunity for the people that want to get into the space. And I actually had somebody ask me the other day, is there some sort of cultural requirement that NFTs are always stupid and ugly? And I was like, no, I don't think so, but they're all pixelated and weird. And can you just imagine a Bored Ape, 5 years ago before NFTs were a thing, selling for $1 million? This is nuts, right?
No.
So I do want to say from the art side, and I just want to talk about the process, Chris, that we went through. I created this piece and put it up on OpenSea, and then you took control of it, but then you transferred it to, maybe it was the Mintgate account, probably for a comparable amount. And that second time, I got compensated for the commission here, but that second time when you transferred it to Mintgate for, getting paid back for it or whatever it was, I got a notice that I got a small commission, which I wasn't even expecting. And it just made me light up. It was amazing as an artist. I'm like, where did this come from? So if that kind of stuff does become the norm and part of how these transactions work, you're going to have a lot of happy artists.
Yeah, the transaction was actually, so the way it worked was we had anybody who donated to the Wildfire Relief Fund, we knew what their wallet address was, and then just went through and literally picked the long random numbers out of there. And then when we went to go do the transfer and put in the wallet address, it resolved and it said, Yonks.eth. I was like, oh, okay, cool. We actually know this person.
I'm talking about a week before though, like when I was preparing this for you and you had done an internal transfer with an actual Ethereum amount or something.
Yeah, that was just from the Unlock wallet. So yeah, we didn't go through Mintgate or anything like that.
I think this is a huge opportunity from a cultural shift standpoint to start baking in these recurring revenue sources into the smart contracts.
Yep.
And even to market to say, hey, artists, this is something that you want to get in on, because I don't think a lot of them know that that's an option. It's the same way I use tipping because it's common in the US, it's not common in Europe. If you leave a tip at a restaurant in Europe, they just kind of give you a weird look because it's not the culture. But I think we could start to change some of that culture for artists to say, this is something that we didn't know was possible, but now we have technology to do recurring revenue. So if owner 7 wants to sell to owner 8, the artist can start keep getting paid for it.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's absolutely my expectation, Dan, as far as what we could do with this derivative to continue to amplify the opportunity for this Boulder Wildfire Relief Fund is set up some agreed upon derivative royalty for, because one of the things that I would like to do is, and I'll talk to Mrs. Yonks offline about this, but we're building out this Triple Win Foundation DAO ecosystem. And one thing that and this is just me thinking out loud here, is that we might donate the NFT that we receive to Triple Win Foundation, and then, have a small piece of that benefit Triple Win Foundation as well from a royalty standpoint. But we can figure out the specifics offline as far as what we want that to look like. But that's I think the big value proposition. And then one of the things that I would love to do too, to mitigate, because one of the fabulous things about Unlock Protocol is the opportunity to completely, from a creator standpoint, bypass a secondary market like OpenSea that takes 2.25% or 2.5% transaction fee every time something is bought or sold. So with this derivative piece on either mirror.xyz or a site that we own, whether it's hackthelight.com and or Triple Win Foundation or unlockprotocol.com, wherever that we wanted, through Unlock Protocol, this derivative NFT could be minted on an L2 chain like Polygon, and then make it super easy. And then if somebody wants to sell to the secondary market, because as soon as that NFT is minted through Unlock Protocol, the smart contract that gets created, then if that person wanted to sell that derivative NFT on a secondary market like Rarible.com or OpenSea, then that opportunity would exist. But again, we can talk more about that. And those are the kinds of conversations that we're looking forward to, is we really believe that the biggest opportunity here in the Web3 ecosystem is providing education, whether it's to aspiring artists. And it's not just like education from a technology standpoint, but the opportunity to incorporate the marketing aspects. And that's one of the things that Chris and I love to have some side conversations about, as far as getting more creative. And that's one of the things that very excited about with the WordPress plugin that got completely revamped from Unlock Protocol. It's an absolutely fabulous Web 2 to Web 3 bridge, utilizing that really allows creators to have full control over any digital art that they're representing. And what's even better that I love, Dan, was, having a physical piece that can look at, and amplify the conversations. And now even better, we've got a video to further amplify this unique piece of work that you created for us. So thank you for that, Dan. And thank you, Chris, for really making this opportunity to exist possible in Unlock Protocol as well. But I've been rambling a little bit. I'm going to defer to somebody else. We allocated an hour and we've only got 10 minutes here. So
let me throw this in. One neat aspect. So there's two things I want to touch on: a use of NFTs, and then we had talked about maybe some of the environmental, ecological aspects of this. So let me touch on that first, because I do want to address that. For artists, that's the elephant in the room. The gas cost, which is anyone watching this who doesn't know that phrase, the transactional and energy cost of performing an Ethereum transaction is extremely high on the legacy blockchain there. And then Polygon, and so it's really bad for the environment to sell this digital ownership piece. But I want to remind people that technology starts somewhere and then it evolves. The very first car did not get 40 miles a gallon, and here we are now with electric cars getting more than that. So you start in some place and then you move and it gets better. And right now we already have Polygon, which you'd mentioned, which is a 99.95% energy savings over an Ethereum transaction. So instead of a huge thing, it's just a small little thing like the packaging you'd have on your bubblegum kind of level. And then Ethereum 2 is going to be not quite as much of a drop as Polygon, but it's still going to be like 99.9% better, which I think makes it a lot more palatable. So we are going to see the evolution of the technology, a decrease in environmental impact. And I do just want to remind people that this is the beginning. I, as an artist and as someone who likes the world that we live in, would not support NFT technology if this is where it was going to end, but it's not. This is where it starts, and then it's going to get a whole lot better. So
I love that. I think that's super important. The other thing, Dan, I wanted to ask you, I didn't realize you had such an amazing science and math background. What would you say to people who have an artistic bent, but they don't really identify as artists or creatives because they are in a traditional job or they have never really thought about it? How would you tell somebody to start making art? What permissions would you give them, and kind of what permissions did you give yourself when you said, okay, I'm not really a physicist, I'm a person that understands physics and I understand art and I understand the composition of these pieces?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to add that, back in the day, I was an accomplished athlete as well. I touched a lot of worlds, but, my main job was technical. And at one point I had a breakup and I had time on my hands. And so when I was a kid, I used to take a lot of pictures of my friends and I doing extreme sports. This is why I mentioned the sports bit. So I had some camera skills. After the breakup, I needed to fill my time with something to feed my spirit a little bit, because, you got to offset the things and live life. And as a technical person, I can sketch, but whenever I was drawing, if it wasn't three-dimensional and, really kind of a technical drawing, I could do architectural stuff, but, if I wanted to do something flowy and organic, that wasn't my jam at all. However, photography is a technical art. So if you want to cut your teeth and do technical art or maybe digital art, that would be a great place to start. The other thing I would say is that everybody that I know right now, nobody knows me as an IT guy. I mean, my day job, I paid the bills with IT. I went to school for physics. My friends would go, "Oh, Dan, the light painting photographer." And, that is my hobby. It's what I do. It's what I put forth to the world, but nobody knows what's inside my head. They just, when I share stuff, that's what they see. And so the only person stopping you from making art is yourself. And, even if you make a piece and you think it's not a very good piece, for instance, if I made a piece right now and it was for me a substandard light painting, I knew I could do better. It didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to. You three did not know what was in my head. You might look upon that and go, "Wow, that is just, oh, that moves me so much." And I've had pieces that I would have completely thrown away from like event photography, and someone looked at it and it was their favorite picture that they've ever had taken of them. And I was glad that I didn't throw it away. So the eyes of perception really color how a piece is received. And you as a creator are always going to be your own worst critic because you know what you went for, and almost certainly you fell short because, translating a brain vision into a practical art vision, it doesn't usually end up 100% the way you wanted it to. And it might be this piece behind me, but this bit right here just didn't quite meet your satisfaction. Nobody else knows that. So create, try it. There is a lot to fake it until you make it. The words I've been using lately for light painting is, F around and find out, just try stuff and see what happens.
And that's amazing. Well, so two things for Dan and Chris, both of you. Dan, I think your voice is really important. And I don't know if you've ever been to Cryptorado or Bitcoin and Beer, and there's a lot of these happy hours and events and stuff that are going on here in the Denver area. I think yeah, absolutely. I think your voice is really important. Anybody who's listening, if you're in the Denver area, show up. If you're not in Denver, look on Meetup, look on the different communities. There's a whole world outside of Discord and outside of online. And I've had so many interesting conversations with people that they're looking for you, and I think you're looking for them. So I just wanted to kind of make those connections. And then for everybody else, Chris, I think Unlock is so interesting. It's so cool. Anybody who has a website with a login needs Unlock. I mean, Dan and Chris, how can people, well, I guess Dan, we'll start with you. How can people like you, follow you, get in touch about the art? And then Chris, if you can do the same thing for you.
Yeah, I want to just mention that one other thing in passing real quick, because I can do this quickly, but a practical use for NFTs. I'm also a hockey fan. And if you buy a jersey and it's autographed, oftentimes they come with a certificate of authenticity, and you have to, you put more stock in the value of something if it has that. I've heard of collector goods, a shirt or something that has a little RFID tag in it or something that compare to an NFT certificate of authenticity, which is probably even better than a paper one. So that's actually a practical use for collectors to use NFTs to validate physical goods. So I just want to throw that out there because that one was like, oh, wow, look at that. That's something different. So, okay, reaching me, hackthelight.com has my art photography. And then I've got two Instagram accounts. One is at hackthelight and the other one is Metamorphia Visuals. And the Metamorphia Visuals is the digital one as well. And then on OpenSea, my username is hackthelight, and I have a collection called Metamorphia as well. And then if you like the style of photography, coloradolightpainting.com, come and collect. We share all of our moves, our secrets. We'll help you learn what we're doing and join us.
That's awesome. So if you couldn't catch all that, we're going to put all those links here in the YouTube replay. So you'll be able to look at that in the YouTube comments. So we'll get that. And then Chris, how can people get involved with Unlock, like you, follow you? Give us all the download for Unlock.
Yeah. So if you are a creator like Dan, if you are a technologist who is looking to build any sort of membership or token gating into whatever project you are working on, definitely swing over to unlock-protocol.com. What we're building and what we're going to continue to build is really a public good that we want anybody to be able to build into their projects and leverage. We are at Unlock Protocol on the Twitters. We have a super active Discord community. And then if folks want to reach out to me directly, I am at ccarfy on all the things.
Thanks for that, Chris. And thank you, Dan, for that. And one of the things too that we will do here on the DAO Hack is have a playlist for any of the videos. This isn't the first video about Unlock Protocol that we've had. And one of the things too that we will do is create a playlist for digital artists so that it makes it easy for those that are aspiring digital artists or would love to hear more about that. Do you have any final thoughts before we call this a wrap today, Mrs. Yonks?
I just want to say thank you, Dan and Chris, for what you're doing. I think that there are so many ways that Web 2 people don't understand the opportunities in Web 3, the fact that, and most of the world, I think a lot fewer people know what NFTs are than cryptocurrency. And that's just a really exciting opportunity for artists to get in at the beginning. I don't think they missed anything. And from Unlock, I think if you have a website with a login, you need to have an Unlock. So we've loved using it. We are so excited to get to be friends with both of you guys, and we're just excited to continue this conversation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. This has been phenomenal and great to see you all again through the tiny little box on the screen, and hopefully we can do it again in person sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking forward to getting more involved at Unlock Protocol, and looking forward, Dan, to further the conversation as far as the connected, contained connected here, and helping the Wildfire Boulder Relief Fund as well. So we'll take that conversation offline.
Cool. Thanks for having us.
Great. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.